We need to align the interests of government and philanthropy with those of consumers, investors, businesses, iwi and non-profits with the collective intention to improve lives. What barriers exist to unlocking impact investment strategies in Aotearoa, New Zealand to achieve these goals?
People are still talking in the Cartesian sense, where you break up a complex problem into its component parts and discuss the component parts. That's what's happening now, a lot of Cartesian thinking. Now, I'm a great fan of Descartes. But Descartes' second instruction was, where you have a complex problem, break it up into small pieces, and having done that and analysed them, you put the pieces together again. What New Zealand lacks is that ability to bring the pieces back together again.
Awareness that these products are safe, investment ready, and can be made to work in New Zealand as they do in many territories offshore.
From a philanthropic or community sector or charitable perspective, I think the barrier potentially is people being concerned that their assets might be at greater risk from a social investment type or impact investing model.
So the biggest barrier, I think, is just the fact that people haven't thought about this. They're still used to doing things the old way, and they probably think that maybe there's a bit of risk involved. And yet, we all know there are risks in every type of investment we make. We've seen, big changes to markets in the last few months, and of course we saw what happened in 2008. So nothing really comes without risk.
Sometimes people have to see the outcome or the potential outcome before they will naturally move into a model that I think has yet to be fully understood.
New Zealand has a terrific donation culture, but hasn't yet moved much from giving a hand out to giving a hand up. And we need to look at where those two are appropriate and what we do to encourage the second.
For Māori, there's already evidence showing that in many of the tribal enterprises, because they're modelled on the existing economic business model, where shareholder value is important, that's the main measurement. I think inadvertently now, Māori institutions are adding to the structure of inequality. In other words, within Māoritanga, we don't know how to resolve the questions of inequality, which are now apparent in the culture. So we have tribal enterprises and got terrific asset growth, massive into the billions, and large numbers of the members of that tribe can't get adequate income, whether it's a beneficiary incomes or wages, salaries. So we're getting that division for the first time in Māori history, that division of structural inequality built into the tribal system.
There are still very few organisations who are ready for investment because you've got to change the culture and thinking within the recipients of investment as well.
For us, it's been a really difficult time trying to figure out the business model that can create a social enterprise. There isn't a legal system within New Zealand that suits us.
We don't yet have a generation in New Zealand of millennial investors banging on the table and saying, what are you going to do with our capital to give it purpose?
What needs to shift is organisations actually understanding their impact and being able to articulate that really well. And what I mean by that is actually having specific measures that they are looking at ongoing, which demonstrates to investors how they are actually helping to achieve the intention and the purpose that organisation has.
For impact investing to work, there's going to need to be a change in the return profile required by investors, and that's either investors who are investing through a funds mechanism or shareholders in a company. Clearly the return profile is different, and it might be that return profile, it's a much longer term return profile. Typically, as investors, we've become quite accustomed to very short-term returns. I think if we're talking about more sustainable investing, then the investment horizon has to change from an investor point of view. We're going to have to think about how we actually align investment with much longer-term returns.
What we really need in this country is a serious incubation effort. How do we put teams of entrepreneurs together to actually develop the business plans, solve the technical problems, solve the business problems, and deliver on the financing that's necessary for those things to actually function?
It's about bridging the information and knowledge gap between those that develop the projects
and those that can potentially fund the projects. You're bringing to the table as a project developer information which is packaged in a certain way, making sure that you are able to communicate and measure the impacts of your investment beyond financial proposition. And likewise, the investor has to have, the open mind to actually grasp this new opportunity.
We haven't been here for years and years in this kind of domain. We have more of we're asset rich rather than, got a whole lot of money kind of waiting there, sitting there to be able to be used. We tend to be risk averse because it's taken so long to get it, and we've got it on the back of a whole lot of loss and colonisation and all these other things. So people are really nervous about investing in high risk type of initiatives. But our people are not high risk.